Let's get this show on the road. I'm Richard.
Thanks for joining me. You're watching the Cabinet Wise Workshop. Today, I'm going to build a Rift Wido kitchen nook bench seat with two liftable tops, which will access storage compartments inside the unit. It will also have two tapered backs. The access point for these benches is going to be the lift up wood top lids that will access the inside for storage. So these will be decorative panels on the face of our bench seat. Because they are fixed, I'm going to attach them to Rift White Oak plywood that will act as the face of our bench seat. Classic core. It uses a veneer and a MDF substrate, which keeps the final product flat and straight. I don't have to worry about ripples underneath the surface, as many veneer core plywoods will have that issue. This bench is made up of a combination of hardwoods and plywoods. If it was accessible from the face, I would make a face frame, but because they are just fixed panels, that will not be necessary. I'll also be using it for the wood top and also for the back. You all know how much I love my fancy CAD drawings. So this is what we're going to be building today. The face of the bench, that's going to have the white oak. This plywood is just going to act as a backer for these panels. So let's get to work. Now I'm going to use the track saw to miter a 45-degree angle on these two pieces so they can come together in the corner. Maple plywood for the interior. Now I'm going to start assembling the box. I simply put pocket screw holes on the bottom platform, so I'll pocket screw this to the face. Here's our mitered end. I'm going to start here, and I'm just going to pocket screw this in. Alright, so now that the bottom platform is on, side wall, and I'm going to screw the back on. Now let's lift it back up. Now we have our box here. This is one side of the bench. Now that this is all assembled, we can attach our mitered end. Once that's together, we're going to make a hardwood face frame for the top. Then we'll add the face panels, and then we'll get to the wood top. Looking for some nice, tight, straight grain. That looks pretty nice. For this now, I'm going to reverse the direction of the pocket screw holes. I'm actually going to flip it like this. Reason being is because I want the back side pocket holes to face up because the top is going to cover that, so inside it will look clean. This will lift. So I had to reconfigure something just a little bit. Sometimes you do that in the middle of the build. Since we don't have directions, we're figuring it out as we go. I decided for this frame to cut these shorter and have the top go all the way across, because when you lift up the lid, this face is what you're going to see. So I wanted to make sure it wasn't butting into here and you were seeing the end grain of that. It'll be a fixed portion of the top here and here, so you will not see those pocket screw holes. So I kept them facing up just so that if you look inside when it's open, it will look very clean in there, just for the mice that live inside. Before I attach this top piece, I'm going to screw on these. So this is something that will not be seen. I didn't have any pieces wide enough, so I'm just going to go ahead and screw those in. This is really just so the top will sit level. This will be totally covered by the top. I can set this in place. So we have our front rail that's going to be glued on like that. This comes all the way across. The hinges are going to be mounted back here. Now I'm going to use old-fashioned nails to attach frame to the box. Glue, of course. The reason I'm using nails and not the domino or the Lamelo, because most of this is going to be covered by the top. The only areas that will not be covered by the top, that will be exposed, is this front edge here, which I will not put any nails in. So I'll be putting nails around just to hold it in place. I'm going to be gluing and clamping this face piece here. The glue is plenty sufficient to hold that. So this is the underside. Perfectly flush both sides. Now, sometimes in life, it can be easy to be distracted by frivolity, but it's best to stay focused and stay on task, always. That's my motto. We must finish this build. We must stay on target. Here is the bench. I went ahead and made the second section of the bench, so now we have both. I built it in the same way I showed the first, so no need to show it twice. One other note in the construction of these, when you go down to the bottom, I screwed on these bottom platforms. And some people may wonder, oh, why didn't you dado it into the front, the sides, and the back? Often, as I'm building, I have to be very conscious of speed. I've said it before. The extra time that would take is just simply not worth it when I can cut these strips of additional plywood and then I add those beneath. So I wanted to show that I did that. The thing is, with the dado, it actually would go halfway into the plywood, so you'd have 3/8 of grip there. Now you have 3/4 of grip with this sitting on top of this 3/4 here. And this is sitting on the floor. So that can't go anywhere. It's locked in. There's many different ways to engineer a product, as long as the outcome is good. And I do care about the outcome very much. Next, we're doing the part you're all waiting for, the top itself, with the liftable lids and the tapered back. I have my Rift white oak plywood already pre-cut. So next I'm going to cut out the lift up lid portion of the top. Once I cut it out, I'm going to line the outer edge and the inside of the cutout with 1/8" strips of Rift white oak hardwood. Then have a 2 1/4" nosing that's going to go on the face. The nosing will stick up 1/2 inch from the surface of the bench. It will not be flush. The reason for that is to hold in the cushion. It's always a good idea when you're going to have cushions to have a little bit of a lip. Therefore, the cushion can't slide off the face quite as easily. I can confirm this is quite the comfortable bench, although it seems to be missing a back. That would make it much better. So let's get to that soon. First, let's just get this dialed in. I'm then going to show you how I attach the doors and how this lid is going to function. On Rift white oak, when you're cutting against the grain, you're definitely going to want to put some masking tape down. Otherwise, you're going to risk tearing out the veneer. No matter how sharp the blade is, it's going to want to tear out. So once I clean up these corners with a chisel, then I'm going to add a 1/4 inch hardwood strip all the way around. I had said 1/8 inch previously, but I prefer a 1/4. I think I'd rather it be a little bit thicker. These corners are chiseled out, nice and tidy. I'm going to add a strip of hardwood to the inside of these openings. I've milled up these strips, and this is what I'm going to apply on the inside edge. I'm going to first miter each piece on the miter saw. Now I'm going to fasten these on with glue and headless micro nails. Now I've set in the lid section to the top, the part that opens. I'm making sure the grain all lines up. I took account of that when I trimmed this down. I wanted to make sure to trim the correct edge. I'm going to add the same thickness of hardwood edge banding to the flip up lid all the way around so it matches, and also so that it finishes it off. So when you open it up, you see a nice hardwood edge. I will not be putting that on the face because once we're done with that, I'm going to then pocket screw the corner together and I'm going to make this one continuous top. When that's all in place, we're going to put the nosing on using my Lamelo, which is a very handy tool. So I've micro nailed these on with my headless 23 gauge pinners. With thin nosing material, you can actually use tape as a clamp. Pull it out, drape it over and stretch it, and that actually acts as a clamp. You'll see the glue squeeze out right here. Now that all the hardwood edge banding is done, this 3-inch strip of hardwood along the back, this is what the hinges are going to mount to. But first, I'm going to reinforce it by adding these pieces, building that out. That will add extra strength at the points where the hinges are connected. There will be 3 hinges. Now, not only do we have something solid to mount the hinges to, but this also really reinforces this back area, so there will be no risk of sagging. Now I'll get the other piece on, and then we'll be ready to pocket screw the 45-degree corner where these two tops meet. So you'll see there's a lot of hardwood here that's reinforcing everything. Very solid. Here's the top on. We have the insides edge banded and sanded. That's just sitting there right now on top. So next I'm going to pocket screw this corner together, mark alternate like this, like stitching, so that I know where to put each screw. But now, a word from our sponsor, Cabinet-Wise, the Cabinet Shop. That's right, there is a whole cabinet shop here taking place behind the scenes. I know this looks like it's just a movie studio, but I assure you it is not. There are actual jobs being completed every day. We have units of wood showing up, we have hardware showing up, all kinds of activity. We got closets, we got kitchens, we got offices, we got entertainment centers. We got it all here. Rows upon rows, going out, productivity happening, feels good. All right, let's get back to the build. Now the hinges I'm going to use are the same hinges I use for flush inset doors. These are the half crank Lum hinges, 9mm hinge plate. So they will work just as well with this setup I have here. So I'm going to mount these here. little change I made. I added a little strip that I glued in at the back, just because I decided I want to have a continuous frame all the way around. That will not affect the ability for the hinge to clip onto here. Just enough to give it a little extra support so you don't risk any sagging. These hinges aren't exactly meant to bear the weight of this. I, however, do like them because they have all this adjustment in them, which is nice. I want to make sure the actual weight of the top is resting on this hardwood frame. So I did add this additional lip that I glued in there. I think that looks nice, just having the frame go all the way around. Adding that piece in the back, it does not allow anything to sag here. This is rock solid all the way around and totally flush. Cannot press in the middle or the sides. Perfect. I've said it before, but I never get tired of that feeling of seeing a project coming together. It's such a satisfying feeling, and it's not like I'm some elite woodworker or anything. A lot of people could build something like this, but it's just a feeling I never get tired of, that feeling of satisfaction. You know, even though this is not the most elaborate piece to ever exist, a lot of people could build it. It couldn't be any more dialed in, and that is such a great feeling. Completely flat, perfect gaps, perfectly flush at the face. And now we're ready for the nosing. One more thing, I glued on these blocks here, which is going to be the point where this connects, and this is going to help the bench stay open and also have a soft close. And the last step before putting the nosing on is drilling holes in each lid. As much as I hate to drill a hole in this beautiful rift white oak, it really functionally is so much better. And I only do it when we're designing this to have a cushion on top. So the cushion is going to be covering all this, as sad as that is, even though the grain lines up so beautifully and all that. The cushion will be covering this, therefore a hole will not be seen. And functionally, that hole just makes the whole bench so much easier to use, because then you can lift it up easily. This holding it up, you can then drop it back down, you hold it like this. Functionally makes it so much easier to use, since we do not want any kind of handle on it. Another option would be, because the nosing is connected, I could have made the gap bigger between the door and the bottom of the nosing, but I just did not want a big wide gap there. I wanted to keep it nice and tight. I also did a 1/8 inch round over on the top and the bottom of it. Form, and here's the function. I always have to remember, this is not an art project. It has to be real world usable. As much as I hate to drill into it like that, these really are nice in real world usability. Put the 1/8 inch round over on all sides, and the reason for that, because of the lift up lids. When you're grabbing them as it lifts up, you'll be touching all sides of it, so it feels nice to the touch. Now I need to be careful when I make these cuts, is I'm going to miter this in the corner, and so I can attach these pieces, and obviously there's going to be a break. I need to make sure everything is the exact right length, because if I mess up, I'll have to cut a whole new piece, because I want them to all be out of one piece, so the grain is all continuous. I'm also going to keep these seams as tight as possible. They're going to be tighter than these gaps on the lid itself, so it's a little line rather than a gap. Thinking something like that. Very minimal. I have every nosing piece cut to size, and I'm going to mark each location for the Lamelo. You've probably seen this Lamelo before. Many people out there are using it. It is a very useful tool. I'm actually pretty new to using it, and I do like what it has to offer so far. So for something like this, it's really convenient. I cut out the slots, use these Senco P14. One side has this, one side has this, and that clips together. Goes in like that. Locks in nicely. So that's the 1/2 inch we're gonna have. So it's gonna sit exactly like this. So in the top will go these pieces. This is what the slot looks like. And then this piece slides in like this. And then the two join together after I put some glue in there. Nice and tight. And then we don't have to have any nail holes on the face. I'm a new adapter to this. I was a little hesitant at first because, you get set in your ways. So it sat for a while, if I'm gonna be totally honest. Then I started using it, and then I was like, wow, this is really useful and super easy to use. Some of you may have seen a while back, I did a video where I said Keith Johnson had sent me one of these to try out. He's a dealer for these Lamelo, what is it called? The Lamelo Zeta or something? Zeta P2? Yep, that's correct. Yes, there it is. I did end up ordering it, but I got really sidetracked and, business to run and all that. Never got around to making a video yet. This is a good time to use it and show one of the ways it can be useful and helpful in a busy cabinet shop. He's the one who told me about it. I really had never seen it before. However, since then, I've seen a lot of people using it. He was the first one to bring it to my attention and sent me one to try. I tried it, liked it. Check him out, Keith Johnson Woodworking, great woodworker. He's an actual furniture maker. Pretty cool when actual makers, actual woodworkers endorse a product because they've used it and they, through their experience, know what's good and what's not. Yeah, speaking of products, Johnson also has a podcast with Jason Hibbs, Bourbon Moth. Yeah, I have one of his products. This thing, very cool. The Bourbon Blade. In fact, I think he liked it so much he actually named his channel after it. Those people that are in the actual daily grind, they know what works and what doesn't work. Use it all the time. Super good quality. So yeah, check him out too. I'm sure you already have. He has like 1 billion followers already on his channel. Anyway, enough about all that nonsense. Maybe one day I will come out with my own product. I will have a thought-activated nail gun. Yes, that's right. You will simply fire the nails using your mind. Because this is sitting up 1/2 inch, I cannot use the same setting both ways. They need to actually be in different locations on the piece of wood. So this is the setup for going into the plywood. We'll then use this attachment, flip this, tighten that, and then add on this attachment. And I found a setting that works for this application, what I need it for, right there. Tighten that up there. So now with this, I can do this with the nosing to cut my slot in just the right location. So there we have those. So let's just go ahead and lock those in. All right, moment of truth. Push that in. And there we are. I have the corner on. This corner on, nice and tight, and then the end piece. I got my clips in on the nosing of the lift up lids. Now I have the first back on. The supports are made out of 3/4 inch plywood. I then just pocket screwed it all together with glue on the back side and then to the bench. This is cut at an 8-degree angle, top and bottom. I just worked with the space that I had. So for this side, I'll do the same thing. The only difference is I will cut my angle on the top and the bottom. There's going to be a 3/4 cap piece that I'm going to top this off with. For this back piece here, I'll need to cut this angle in it because that's going to come and butt into this. We'll use this to trace onto it going that way, and that's going to give me the angle I need right there. We are just about there. Now that this back is cut to size, I'm going to put these support pieces on the back. Got the angle cut there. All right, let's see if this fits here. Got the supports on. Coming along nicely. I just cut this cap piece here for the end. Gonna glue that on, and then we just have the cap on the top, and then we are done. What a journey.